coming close to 2 weeks in Verdansk, and already some streamers are asking for some pretty big changes. Today we're going to discuss this in detail and whether or not Call of Duty should actually listen. For as long as I can remember, the topic of whether or not streamers are ruining Warzone or even gaming in general has been a big deal amongst this community and basically every other community within gaming. And recently I actually dropped a video titled "Streamers Ruined Call of Duty Warzone Verdansk." And furthermore, I actually went on to ask my community, what do you think of the situation? Should Activision listen to streamers and the community more, or keep doing their own thing? And there were a series of different responses. Some people said stop listening to streamers altogether. Some people said streamers are a voice for their communities. Some people had meaner things to say, but I think the general consensus was that Call of Duty should listen to all players, and that came from the people with a head on their shoulders. And I respect the hell out of you for saying something like that, because truly, as long as you know that not everyone's out for themselves, then the game can thrive. But some people seem like they truly are out for themselves, and that person I'm gonna talk about today is Swagg. And I'm so sorry to Swagg, because clearly he just misspoke, which we'll talk about in a second, but he actually tweeted out on April 10th, hashtag nerf the HDR at Raven Software. To be clear, there is no more context here. He did not say this is how I want it nerfed. He didn't say you could buff this, you could do that. He did not give any context with this tweet. That was it. He just tweeted out nerf the HDR. So of course, people are up in arms. The HDR finally came back as a one-shot elimination sniper. That's what we've been asking for years, since Caldera, whenever, I'm gonna say it, streamers ruined sniping. And we're gonna get into that and why it existed in its capacity way back then. But first, let's go through everything and talk about why this was an incredibly dumb thing to say, along with talk about a bunch of other streamers that are also causing problems. And again, this is actually nothing against Swagg in the slightest. This is actually kind of an issue I have with people trying to communicate, but let's go a little bit further. I responded to this and I said, this is the bullshit that gives streamers a bad name right here, in case y'all are wondering. A lot of people even responded to him and said, you run around with 50 rounds in both your guns, stop crying. Swagg said the HDR aims in faster than my AMAX. Community, hard disagree. Mr. Marvel, this is the way sniping should be. Westy, no. Repulse even responded and said, use me as a dislike button. I'm sure if I go into the quote tweets, which I'm absolutely not going to do, you would see so much more than just that, and it would get a lot more hateful. But they actually followed this up. The Nuke Squad did it. I'm going to pause this here, and we're actually going to react to what he said in response to all of that. But the big problem that I have is lack of context. Keep that in mind as we dive into this. Hey there, Editor Expel here to remind you to double check you are subscribed. Additionally, if you're in the market for a controller, the Expel Pro controller is actually on sale along with any custom built controller up to $450 in value over at expel.gg for only $189 plus shipping when you use code Expel. So if you want to improve, go grab you one before the sale ends. Anyway, back to the video.
There's so many creators quote tweeting those tweets and kind of talking shit. Jay, who was the one in the meeting when we played Verdansk the first time ever back in what, December? What was one of the first things I said should be in the game?
One-shot snipers. 150 players, one-shot snipers.
Bro,
so to be clear, he believes that one-shot snipers should be in the game. That is what is being said right here. Swagg believes one-shot snipers are meant to be in the game, right? Let's keep watching.
It's so exhausting seeing the fucking timeline. And not even it's like the trolls are fine. It's like the other creators who have no idea what the fuck is going on. Or
see, this is like the issue, right? You project like a mother because you misspoke. That's the issue. You misspoke and you're mad at everybody else around you. I mean, it just comes down to accountability. And to be clear, I've met Swagg, incredible dude. Super nice guy. I've never had an issue with him in any way whatsoever. In fact, he's reacted to some of my videos. He's probably made thousands of dollars off of the TikTok that he made from my Twitter video. I'm good with all of that. I'm not bothered in the slightest. I just, when it comes to being a content creator, in my personal opinion, I feel that you have a responsibility to your audience to be very clear, to take accountability for your actions, and just make sure that what you're saying is the right thing. Don't get me wrong, we mess up, but we have to take accountability for when we do mess up. So that's kind of my big thing here, but I'll let the video continue and we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Like what is said in these meetings, because they're not there.
Yeah.
One shot sniping's fine. Like, bro, I was just like, I was seeing how I'm like, bro.
I don't have them right now because I threw them away, but we had notes and like we literally, and I'm not saying that just because he's my man, because I was at those meetings too, and literally, I'm not gonna say people's names and shit, but was talking about audio, the look of this shit, this and that and that. Me and Chris and I were the only ones that's like 150 players, one shot snipes, and I said multiple metas, like Kilo meta, Amax meta, like do like different.
I mean, it clearly seems like they have the average player in mind. And I like, to be clear, I respect the hell out of that. There's a lot of people in the community, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, that are very clearly out for themselves and don't give a shit about anybody else. They're like, I want to do what makes me look like I'm a badass. And to be honest, if you're that good, you can adapt, which is what I will always say. You will be frustrated. It may not feel like the game's for you, but clearly Swagg and the people he has around him, they all believe that, you know, the casual player has a place, which, to be clear, they should, because the casual player is what keeps this game alive. Not to say that we want Warzone 2 again, but I digress. Either way, he goes on to talk about the same thing. He goes on and on and on and on and on. It's all the same thing. He just repeats himself 8 times. So when you go down into the comments, and I apologize to whoever I have muted here, it's nothing against you. I'm sure it's probably because you tweeted out something about sports at one time. I kid you not. I just mute everybody that constantly tweets about sports. I'm sorry, it's nothing against you. But for example, we have Lucky Chamu. Lucky Chamu, GG's, sorry I muted you. Was not trying to be rude in any way. But he said, what creators are hating on Swagg? At them, chat. And I think this is the issue, right? This is where you see people look like every creator's got every creator's back, you know, like stuff like that is goofy as hell, because you can't just get upset because other people have an opinion that isn't nerf the HDR. It makes no sense. Lucky Chamu, what are you doing? And Mr. Marvel even goes on to say the exact same thing that I do, which is then elaborate like this the first time, my man. So I responded to it right after it got posted, actually. And I said, other creators react to the verbiage being shared in these posts. Putting out an all caps post saying nerf the HDR is obviously going to lead to people thinking he's wanting it to not one-shot kill. I think giving a better context to these posts would be massively helpful when speaking on a touchy topic. Oh my God, I can't speak. When speaking on a touchy topic within the community. So of course, just be more clear. Learn to communicate a little bit better whenever you're trying to talk about something that's pretty important to whether or not the game's going to survive the next year. If we change everything to be super sweaty, guess what? The game's going to die. Funny enough, so many people said the same thing. If I go into my responses, Xanthus said this all day, twice on Sunday. If you're going to make a post about something, be clear and concise with your intent. I responded and said, yeah, people get upset that I use walls of text and that I spend forever explaining things. But the reason why is because I want to be very clear about what I'm saying so there's no misunderstandings. I know my videos are an hour long, but if I don't make them an hour long, something's going to get taken out of context. Call of Shame's going to put it up on his channel. He's going to steal my title and thumbnail like he did the other day. And then he's going to say that I said this, that, or the other thing. When in reality, if you pay attention to what I'm saying half the time, I'm trying to be as honest as I physically can. So neither here nor there, but I said, what's the point of saying something if it's not actually what you're trying to say? Why are you saying something if you're not trying to convey that as the message? Or why are you saying something that falls in line with everything going on around you, but you disagree with that? My boy, help me out here. And I know that I sound terrible. I am sick. So if you made it this far and you're making fun of my voice, you a bitch. All right, I said what I said. So, Modern Warzone tweeted out shortly thereafter and said, new 73% of players think that the HDR should not be nerfed in Warzone. Only 27% of players think that the sniper rifle should be nerfed in some way. Sample size, 33,000. Poll length, 24 hours. Now, what I'd like to add on top of this is the players that are saying that it shouldn't be nerfed are not casual players. Casual players do not get on Twitter. They don't get on X.com or whatever the hell you're calling it these days. They're not on Twitter. They're not hopping on there and voting in polls and shit like that. They're hopping on 1 hour like every other night, or 1 hour once a week or something like that onto the game. They're not sitting there on Twitter 24/7. They're scrolling Instagram and liking titty pics. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, bro. Like, that's what's going on. The casual player's not on here. What that means to me is that 73% of higher skilled players are saying that it shouldn't be nerfed. That means that the whole community is on the same page with one thing, and there's a select group of people that are shouting from the rooftop, this gun needs to be nerfed. Now, in reality, a little bit into Swagg's video that I mentioned earlier, he talked about how there's different ways.
The ground loot of just snipers in general. If they're gonna.
A little bit later, he talked about how there was lesser ways, or there's different ways on how they can nerf it without actually nerfing it.
Leave the HDR the way it is.
Take it out ground loot.
No. It's not even that. You got to lessen the ground loot of just snipers in general, and you got to make ARs have great bullet velocity. Yo, you know what the difference is now?
And I'm not against that. To be clear, I remember playing back in the day on Warzone 1, and I loved the growl because you could be 200 meters away and absolutely beam somebody, and it was incredible. Now, not so much. In my personal opinion, I'd love to see, the ARs get a little bit better at that range, because I'm not saying they should shoot 400 meters by any means, but to be able to compete with the sniper rifles, they need a little bit of change. Truthfully, I just thought that was funny from Casey. He said, "A Swagg, you chalked." This poor guy. It's so funny because when you actually go to Modern Warzone's page, he does the poll. And underneath it, he says, "Low-key running this one for you and the boys at Swagg." My goodness, man. It's just so funny. And I got to respect Lucci down here saying the damn HDR is exactly how it was back in the day. There weren't no riots in the streets over the HDR, AX50, etc. back then. People just played the damn game. SYBAU. I don't know what that means. I don't need an explanation. Hunter said, no, the ARs need to be buffed for long range to compete like the original Warzone. Exactly. Reed Boy said, anybody who says yes doesn't have friends. Overall, what I would say is most people don't want it to be nerfed. And I absolutely agree with that sentiment. And I'm not going to sit here and harp on whether or not the HDR specifically needs to be nerfed. I realize we've been talking about it for like 10 minutes or so. But the big thing is changes like this, things that get, mass attention. These are things that clearly are very divisive, right? Very, very divisive. If so many people are saying yes and so many people are saying no, and it's that divisive, then very clearly it is not a good idea to go buck wild on the changes that they're going to do. And from what I can tell, it seems like Raven Software is not completely inept, right? They know how to pay attention. They know how to listen. It's not like we're dealing with Infinity Ward who just does whatever the hell they want. Black Ops, Treyarch often, whenever they make Black Ops, they let the game die after 6 months. And we don't have these same studios. We've got Raven Software and Beanox and High Noon. And these guys listen to the community more than anybody else. So I guarantee they're paying attention to what's being said. In fact, we are going to be talking about in a little bit. I have an IGN review pulled up right here where they talked about a bunch of different things. But the next thing I want to talk about is Lucky Chamu. He said, wait, I'm so lost. Do people really think streamers ruined Warzone? Ain't not one streamer want anything they included in Warzone 2. That game was made for y'all DMZ players. And Swagg, of course, responded to it with this. And I mute a lot of people on Twitter that talk about sports. I realize it's weird that I just mute people on Twitter. I follow a lot of people that I mute. It's nothing against them. I should have probably went through and viewed all of this if I was going to scroll through it. That's on me. But basically, there's just a ton of people that dive into this. Some people say yes, streamers ruined it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So here we go. This guy right here, of course, says GODQ and I am Expel loved Warzone 2. They argued me tooth and nail that it was amazing. So if I was to go back to my tweets and explain it, basically, I'm saying the same thing now that I was in Warzone 2. The exact same thing. I said a faster time to kill is better for the community. Guess what? Here we are. Warzone 2 or Warzone, whatever the hell you want to call this, Verdansk. Faster time to kill, better for the community. I argued that. There were a lot of different things that I argued. I said the biggest problem that I have with Warzone 2 is that I hope that they added in quality of life changes. They sped it up a little bit and they got things to where it needed to be so that it matched the like speed of the previous game a little bit. But I'm fine with slowing it down and giving it like slowing it down a little bit, which is the same thing we did in Verdansk, which is why this Nick guy is an absolute moron. No offense. No offense given. You're an absolute moron and I stand on that. I went for days trying to explain what I was trying to explain. The issue is back then you couldn't write super long tweets. So I ended up in this situation that I know Swagg is in, and I take accountability for saying stupid shit. I absolutely said stuff that could not be explained in one tweet. So I had to send longer tweets, respond. And it's incredibly dumb to have to do that because I messed up one time with saying not my full thought. So that's what I'll say. And some people get stuck on what they're trying to say. But the big thing that I want to talk about here is that ain't not one streamer want anything they included in Warzone 2. Warzone 2 was clearly not a great game, right? I feel like we can all agree with that. A lot of things that were implemented in Warzone 2 ruined Warzone as a whole. In fact, if I was to pull up Google Trends, it would actually blow your mind. I might actually have to do that. Google Trends. And if I go into Google Trends and I look up Warzone, then I will be able to show you how actually absurd it is. So we're here on Google Trends. I'm sorry for flashbanging you, but we're here on Google Trends. And if I change this to the past 5 years, you can see that Warzone 2 was hot ass, right? The reason we know is that this is all the way through the pandemic. Everybody's at home and we've got at max a 69% peak right here compared to Warzone 2 being the highest point of people looking up Warzone. This was the biggest moment. This right here was the biggest moment in Warzone history. And the game was perceived so poorly that it died within a week and a half. Like, maybe like 2 weeks. Basically 2 weeks, this game dropped lower than it was in Caldera, stayed lower until they reintroduced Rebirth, and then that even dropped off back down to below Caldera levels. Like, it's absurd how bad Warzone 2 was. And yes, there were certain things about Warzone 2 that were good, and I stand on that, and I will stand on the fact that a faster time to kill is better. But having my guns shake all over my screen, incredibly stupid. It ruins the game for everybody. There were so many things like that were in the game, but I will stand on the fact that adding in things that make the casual enjoy the game a little bit better is better for the game. The next person I kind of want to talk about here is Zyro. I personally think that Zyro makes incredible content. He does some super crazy stuff. He makes really good videos, and what he does is very impressive. But he dropped a tweet that said, "You guys got to revert the movement back to this. Having a fast time to kill isn't the worst thing in the world if you can somewhat counter it by using movement. I feel that would be the perfect balance for Warzone. Fast time to kill plus movement caters to everybody." And as you can see, this is the clip right here. He's got a Superi maxed out. He's running like 8.4 meters per second, like an absurd speed. He slides backwards. Like, this is why Omni movement was not well perceived. If you opt in and use Omni movement, you're going to piss off everybody because there's literally no way anyone can keep up with you, right? It's just is not possible. I love Omni movement. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm somebody that plays at a very fast pace. I think it's incredibly fun, but that doesn't mean that I think it needs to be this fast because you're ruining the experience for very bad players. Like, most people can't track. Most people don't know how aim assist works. So if I'm going to sit here and try and fight people that have, no idea how that works, and I use this to outmaneuver them constantly, I'm always going to win my matches. That's how I won my matches for so long, because this movement was so broken. It's that simple. And he went on to talk a little bit more. He said, side note, I have been loving Verdansk at the moment, but I'm sure we can all agree that, to be clear, I'm sure we can all agree that the movement nerf is just unnecessary. This is yet another example of them working so hard to get the movement in a good spot, then going backwards. This happened with Warzone 3 and Warzone 1. I don't know when this happened with Warzone 1 because movement basically continued to get better, but okay. I responded and I said, the movement nerf was minimal, but makes a massive impact for the vast majority of players. Tracking is easier with aim assist, sure, but most in lower skilled lobbies, 80+% of players have no idea how their aim assist works or know what it's doing. Slowing it down was a necessity to allow players to enjoy their matches, even when fighting better players. If you're good, then this shouldn't really affect you. I get movement demons and TikTok warriors want to feel like they're better than everyone else. At the end of the day, Warzone was built to be a tactical BR with arcade shooter vibes, basically Call of Duty multiplayer vibes. We were definitely going a little too fast before, and I know that because everyone hated how difficult it was to fight people that understood Omni movement alongside having the speed of the Flash. I can say this definitively because most of my YouTube audience is insanely casual. No offense. I love you. Is insanely casual, and they fought me tooth and nail on the matter. Look, I read y'all's comments, okay? I do. Reverting to what it was before would lose so many players, and we'd go back to square one. Sometimes it's just better to take the L for the sweats to allow for the player base to thrive, which again is what I said in Warzone 2, Nick. That's what I said in Warzone 2. If you want to take my shit out of context, feel free. Wake up! No, I'm just kidding. No, I really don't care that much. This is like multiple years ago, so I'm just talking smack. Nick, I hope you have a great day, bro. In my opinion, we're at a good middle ground right now. I'm bookmarking this under my streamers will kill Warzone again folder alongside the nerf the HDR tweets. And this guy right here, kind enough, said, love your take with the TTK, but Resurgence shouldn't have faster TTK at all, yada, yada, yada. I'm not skimming over that. Y'all can read it. But realistically, Resurgence and Warzone BR should not be connected. And I think this would be the best thing. And the reason I say that is because the streamers that play Rebirth have the worst idea for Warzone every time I read their tweets. It is the most frustrating thing on the planet that they say, nah, we need to be able to slip and slide and dive over people like a spider monkey. I want to be able to shoot at people for 47 minutes and not get the elimination. I want to play it like it's Apex Legends. Brother, chill out. These dudes are dads that have played once a month. Like, calm down, bro. Like, we get it. You want to feel like you're the best in the world, but you got to take a chill pill. And again, this isn't necessarily specifically to Zyro. In fact, I doubt Zyro really gives a crap. But the big thing is I think that the two should be treated as two entirely different entities. Time and time again, the players there have brought down the entire player base because of the changes that only help when you're playing a glorified TDM. Take, for example, gulag tokens. Take, for example, redeploy tokens. Take, for example, literally anything that has you coming back to life over and over and over in the game. Then take, for example, them being in close combat and having a super high time to kill so that everybody can slip and slide around infinitely without having to die because people hate dying in the game. There are so many things that are good for Resurgence because it is a glorified team deathmatch that are terrible for a battle royale. And Warzone was built to be a battle royale. Rebirth came in just for people that wanted to have that connection with multiplayer, but still play it in Warzone. You get that kind of like feeling of battle royale, last team standing, stuff like that, but it's basically a TDM up until the very end. And again, I'm sorry to those of you that play Resurgence, but that's the cold hard truth. I was good with like what he said, you know, but then he followed it up by saying we got the casuals extremely mad with this one. And again, I think this comes down to self-awareness. This is another thing that like pisses off like regular players and viewers is that people see stuff like this and they're like, oh, he really is arrogant. And while this may not be arrogance in the slightest, it comes off that way, right? He may just be like laughing at the fact that he got a ton of comments talking smack. Sometimes you have to laugh it off. But the issue is that stuff like this tends to come off as arrogant. Trust me, because I've done it before over and over and over. And I've learned that I have to write something out and let it sit for 5 minutes and read it back And that's the only thing that I can do to keep from not sounding like an asshole sometimes, because I realize that when I write things out, it doesn't convey tone, and tone is missed whenever you write stuff like this out. So looking at this, there's going to be a lot of people that see it and immediately assume that he's being arrogant. So you can't be mad when people feel that way. And then you've got someone down below that said, oh, the go back to rebirth then guys are out in full force. And it just kind of becomes an echo chamber of people that kind of feel the same way. Does anyone even realize what's going on with Warzone right now? This one actually, look, I'm going to give him this one. This one's actually a pretty funny tweet. I'm not even against it. I agree with what he's saying. It makes sense, but it doesn't mean that that's how the world works. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know what? I can't give the analogy I wanted to give, but talking about what Jay Coochie said, he said, does anyone realize what's even going on with Warzone right now? They have skill-based matchmaking in the game for casuals, which again, I firmly believe that skill-based matchmaking is terrible for gaming and has really ruined the brains of players and divided the entire player base on repeat. It is the reason that everyone hates each other in gaming. I'm gonna be real. It's great for making money for these companies. It is terrible whenever it comes to making a happy player base. You will always have an angry player base if your game has skill-based matchmaking. It is that simple. With that said, he said, great. They make a specific battle royale casual game mode for casuals. Nice. Are you paying attention? They made a game mode for casuals. On top of the game mode specifically made for casuals, they nerf movement and time to kill across regular modes for casuals. Hello, Earth? Like, it is absolutely crazy, like the stuff that this man is saying. But he is kind of spot on, right? The game is incredibly catered to casuals. But at the end of the day, casuals are about 80% of the player base. You've got 20% of the player base that actually get hurt by what's going on, and they're also the very vocal part of the player base, which sucks, but we have to take the L. That is how it works. If you play this game for a living, of course. The nice thing is he did respond to somebody that said something about seeing you so upset really makes my day. And he said, as long as I'm getting paid, I ultimately don't care what happens with the game. I just like to vent. And I think that is exactly where a lot of people fall in. A lot of these guys just like whine and gripe on Twitter, but in reality, I mean, I fall into that category every once in a while. You fuss on Twitter, but at the end of the day, we play the game for a living, bro. Like, it is what it is. Like, don't get me wrong, some people do a little bit more than play the game. Some of us spend a lot of time making content. It's a whole other thing. But for me personally, you know, I get to play the game for a living. I get to do what I love. I get to support my family with it. And I'm incredibly thankful for that. So I can't sit here and argue with that in the slightest. The next person, who, by the way, I respect massively. I actually freaking love DeadlyDill. Incredible guy. This was a stupid tweet. I'm not going to lie to you. This one kind of threw me off. He said, if you camp in Warzone casual, please uninstall the game. And when I saw that, I was like, dang it, bro. You be dropping some fire tweets, dog. You been dropping some good stuff. Dill, dang it, bro. But I got to highlight it because it's got to be one of the dumbest tweets I've ever seen. Because realistically, the people that are playing casuals and they need that mode, they are not going to be good enough to run around in general. I'm not saying they shouldn't try, but I'm saying it's nothing new. So why even mention it? Like, that's where I'm at. It doesn't matter if it's affecting you. My brother, get out of casuals. I don't know what else to tell you there. I do also want to recognize that there's a lot of people that are actually doing some very, very good stuff for the community. Ironically, we have ZLaner, somebody who has taken a lot of heat in the past for cheating. He clearly does not cheat. If you think he cheats, go watch the AI video that you were going to watch anyway. All right, go talk to your AI porn bot or whatever. Anyway, ZLaner said, let's not repeat history. We have our cake and can eat it too. And let's listen to what he has to say here.
Chat, that's why I keep saying, bro, all the stuff that the content creators and all the pros want them to take out of the game, or not take out, but like fix, or immediately crying about TTK, they're immediately crying about one-shot snipers, etc. I said it last night. We can have our cake and we can eat it too. We're now back.
On that topic, actually, can I just say that content creators do whine and gripe a lot, bro. Like streamers do whine a ton, dude, because man, like I want to recognize the fact that people do this, right? I'm sat here making a video whining about other people whining, you know, like that's the reality of it. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people are going to click this video because I'm whining about other people whining and it feels like they're being heard. And that's okay. I want to be very clear. I hear you, right? I hear you saying these things, and I read my comments every single day of people saying all this stuff about me or streamers or this, that, and the other thing. Man, I get it. Like, there's a lot of fussing going on out here, but to be fair, everybody does it. It's just that you see them because they have an audience. I promise you probably bitching more than streamers out there. Let's keep it real.
Back to where we began, okay? The game feels incredible. People are having more fun than ever. Now all they have to do is do what they needed to do back then. We could have had our cake and ate it back then too. You want to know how? Create a ranked game mode for all of the sweats and all of the people that want to grind this game and be the best they can. There's nothing wrong.
And let me just say, I have preached this since day one. A lot of y'all don't know this, but back when Caldera was in the game, I don't know, some of y'all probably ain't even been here that long. And let's go full screen here. So back when Caldera was in the game, there were quite a few changes that happened, a lot of which are believed to be because of streamers. The only one that was purely because of streamers was one-shot snipers. That was the beginning of the end, okay? But everybody likes to think, oh, the balloons were added because because streamers wanted to get around the map faster and get more eliminations. No, that is not what happened. I want to be very clear. That was because of everyone. If you don't know, when Caldera launched, one, a lot of people couldn't play it, right? PlayStation 4 and Xbox One players literally couldn't play it. They didn't come back. That is when the player base started going to PC, because people could not play the game without having a system that could render in all the leaves and stuff. Sure, some came back whenever they fixed all the dev errors. Some came back whenever the game wasn't stuttering constantly, but it started becoming a primarily PC-based game. I'm not saying that it was like fully PC-based, but a lot of people started switching to PC, or the player base was mostly just PC players. So the player base in and of itself is naturally less casual. They also hated the vehicles. When the vehicles for Caldera came out, it was an airplane. It was vehicles that literally didn't have enough torque in the system to get their asses up a hill. You had a whole ass part of the map at the very center called Peak, where you could dive off of it, jump off of it in any direction, and you could fly to anywhere at the very edge of the map. Any direction. That right there is the reason that balloons happened. It had nothing to do with this streamer, that streamer, whatever streamer that you want to say. Nobody was out here like specifically saying, hey, give us Fortnite balloons. Please, I'm begging you. No, they recognized that vehicles sucked. They couldn't change it in a way that would be meaningful enough. So they added a different route around the game. The issue is that carried over into Warzone 2, which is not a good thing. We should not have had that in Warzone 2. When Warzone 2 came out, we should have had better vehicles. We should have had vehicles that made more sense. And don't get me wrong, they were better, but they weren't perfect. We still did not have Warzone 1 vehicles, the original Verdansk vehicles. I still want that goddamn Jeep, and I want Bertha back, bro. I want Bertha back so bad. But realistically, that is not something that happened because of streamers. I'm sure you could give me a list of things like that, and I could be like, no, that happened because of this. Because a lot of this comes down to the data that they have on the back end. And Raven Software did their absolute best to get the game in a place where quality of life changes were the only thing needed. And they did a great job with Caldera. I didn't like the colors that Caldera was. It was massively orange. But I will say, I would absolutely blame streamers for the fact that one-shot snipers existed. The reason that came about was because ranked mode didn't exist. The reason the time to kill came about was for everybody because, again, ranked mode. But maybe time to kill could be closer to streamers. But I think that was more them just trying to even it out. They did a ton of testing for that. I don't know if you know that. They did iron trials multiple different times, multiple different iterations, multiple different health combinations and stuff like that. They did so much. They got so much information from the community before they implemented time to kill changes. they kept trying different things along the way. They wanted to see how the average player interacted with it. The one thing that they didn't check with was one-shot snipers, because the only thing they could do was just nerf them into existence. And then after that, in Warzone 2, they nerfed all snipers to not be one-shot unless they had explosive ammo, which sucked. So one-shot snipers, fully streamers. Everything else, fully based on data. I want to be very clear about that. I'm not trying to say that streamers don't whine and gripe a lot about the things that a lot of people gripe a lot about, but they did not cause anything having to do outside of one-shot snipers, because developers genuinely do not listen to streamers as much as you think they do. I promise, bro. Like, whenever I was in the meeting recently, we weren't even allowed to ask questions about off-topic things. Like, I was in the creator call for season 3 for Verdansk. They invited people out. We were given a 2-hour heads up before the patch notes dropped so that we could know all this stuff before the patch notes. Have no idea what the point of that was, because we didn't basically get any more information that came out than what came out with the patch notes. But a lot of people like had additional questions they wanted to ask. And every single time somebody asked a question outside of what was topical, let's put a pin in that. 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 Like over and over and over. I'm not talking smack by any means. I understand they were trying to stay on topic and keep the hype rolling. But man, if you think for some reason that streamers are actually changing the game or something like that, no, they're really, really not. Either way, let's keep going with ZLaner's video.
Wrong with that. But there is something wrong with it when it affects the casual side of this video game. Like, look how casual Big Pop is. This guy just put his fucking controller down and he's ripping a bong toke as we speak. As we speak, he's ripping the bong. There's nothing more casual than that. And that's what COD's all about, man. So all they gotta do is release a ranked game mode, okay? And they need to take away one-shot sniping from ranked. Maybe nerf the HDR in ranked, just in ranked. Add a little more, a longer TTK, so you got a little bit more health in a ranked game mode. Because
and with that in mind, with what I mentioned earlier, adding that into the fact that we can do mode-specific rules, they could make Rebirth the same as it used to be. So if Rebirth players want it that way, and they can see that that's what they want, you could make Rebirth like the old modes, right? The old speed, the old time to kill, stuff like that. So if the Rebirth players want that, I don't see a reason why not to give it to them. But ZLaner is spot on. I've been saying this for so long. The whole reason all these things showed up, like specifically one-shot snipers, is because rank play never existed in Caldera. So had it existed, and had they gotten their way with adding in ranked play, and there were a lot of different like red tape and stuff that they couldn't get through, like what Raven could not get through, because they knew that Infinity War was dropping Warzone 2. So because Infinity War was dropping Warzone 2, the red tape was we're not allowed to do rank play because we want to do rank play on the next game. And then rank play, of course, was shit on the next game. But that whole thing was because rank play didn't exist. So the only reason that streamers got what they want for the one time was because they were going to not have rank play. That's it. That's the only reason. So I firmly believe, and I'm not trying to like on streamers, but like, if you can't realize that, you are like fucking blind, bro. It is crazy. It is crazy to me that people can't recognize what happened. But then again, most people aren't super far in the scene, so obviously people are ignorant, but they speak with ignorance, which feels incredibly like, get all the information before you have something to say, like, obviously. But either way, he goes on to talk about that all across the board and how you just throw it into that. And I responded to it and I said, I'm so incredibly tired of seeing people completely focus on themselves and not caring about how their personal wants affect the population as a whole. Perfect take. I've been saying this exactly since Caldera's big change with TTK and one-shot sniper nerfs. And there were so many people that responded to this the exact same way. So many people recognize that we do have an opportunity right now. We have the one opportunity that I would love to keep. In fact, I thought it was kind of hilarious that Lucci tweeted out, I can't wait to go down the exact same path we did in 2022 because everyone complains about everything. And again, I don't think it comes down to that, but This whole thing is the Nuke Squad hopping into a game and showing all these crazy snipes that they did and showing how busted it is. And it's not busted by any means. I might actually quit if they take away one-shot snipe. Fair enough, Godku. I feel you, bro. But there's just so many people. I don't know why that reloaded, but there's just so many people that constantly fuss about everything without recognizing that you are the 1%. You are the top 1%. You are the one person that this is affecting in the way that it's affecting. So the regular player is not having their lobby die instantly. You know, the regular player is not hitting these crazy ass snipes, and you're not in those lobbies, bro. I don't know who needs to know this unless they got like a 12 box or something like that. It's not possible. It's not even possible to get in lobbies with the players that they are catering to. That's the interesting thing. Believe it or not, especially with the player base being where it is right now, like as large as it is, they don't need to mix the super low players. I'm not running into in Verdansk the players that are absolutely terrible. In Urzikstan, I was, because they had to mix the lobbies. There was no option. They had to mix it. And there were times where I'd hop on and I'm like, is that guy real? Is he alive right now? But in Verdansk, I'm not seeing that in the slightest. So stuff like that, I just think it's goofy. People just have no awareness. In fact, I saw JGOD tweeted this out. He said, interesting to see someone say that as a casual that the nerf movement negatively impacts them. I don't believe, off rip, I don't believe that a casual is commenting on a JGOD video. That's what I'll say. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. Like, I understand that a lot of y'all are casual. Like you play a lot less than you. In fact, there's a lot of people that watch me that don't even play Call of Duty. First of all, I love you, bro. That's crazy. Respect the hell out of you. But the likelihood of someone being honest about this, some people think that they're casual if they have a 1.5 KD. You're not casual. You're not casual. If you're that good, you ain't casual, bro. I'm going to keep it a buck. So what is the movement supposed to be? If it's faster, wouldn't they complain about sweat sliding across their screens? And this person said, as a casual, the movement the movement nerf hurt us. Being shot in the open, can't dodge bullets. If you throw a smoke, your character slow down during animation, which I think they could speed that up. Can't lie down behind cover fast when injured. Being chased and losing tack sprint, especially when reloading, etc., is annoying. Someone else, yeah, he followed that up by saying, also, comments like these make it impossible for the devs. The first one says, if they remove one-shot snipes, I'll be uninstalling. The second one says, one-shot snipers are why I stopped playing. It's like, bruh, what do you want to do? Like, what is it that you actually want? Who is this? Caffrey, fair play. All he does is fuss about the game. Love you, bro. Much love. That's why I got you muted. Nothing against you personally. Just can't deal with the same tweets over and over saying, bring Blackout back. I just think the big thing is a lot of people don't actually know what they want. You know, they think that if they do this, that it's going to affect it in this way. If I do this, if they would do this, then I'd play like this. Dog, you just suck dick. Like, that's all it comes down to. It sucks. Like, I'm not even talking trash. To be clear, I was at that point at some time, you know? Like, it is what it is. No matter what happens, you are still going to be asked at the game, right? If you play like 2 hours a week, do not, for the love of God, expect to be a demon and play against the best in the world. Every once in a while, you're going to get a player that's ridiculously good in your lobby. You cannot be upset that they're good and they're in your lobby. Like, it doesn't make sense, you know? You have to expect at some point you're going to lose. Everybody loses the game. There's no reason to be mad that you died to a player that was better than you. That is the worst mentality. That is such a loser mentality, dude. So I think a lot of players just don't actually know what they want, and they don't recognize how things will necessarily affect them if they happen. So because of that, so many people say, this has affected me this way. This has affected me this way. If they would do this, I would play better. If they would do this, I would feel better. And that is just not the case in like 99% of scenarios. And the only way that you would know that is if they had already done it, you had learned it, you had figured it out, and you played with it for like 8 hours a day, in and out, over and over and over. That, like, there's a reason that video games have like QA testers and stuff. And to be fair, some of them have been a little whack lately. Activision's way of doing QA testing is a little whack from what I hear. But there's a reason that people QA test stuff like this, and they figure it out, and they spend years trying to decide whether or not they should do one thing or another. And that's kind of how we ended up with Warzone in the capacity that it's in. But to make people feel a little bit better, we're going to dive into one last thing, which is an IGN interview actually with Raven Software. So off rip, we've got this this question from IGN. Said, a lot of people are wondering, is Verdansk here to stay? Is it like a celebration, one-shot type thing that you're doing? Or is this something that players can expect long-term and you iterate on it on that basis? And Pete said, we brought Verdansk back for a reason. It wasn't just to bring it back for a season and kind of say goodbye to it again. A lot of effort went into it. And when I hear a lot of effort, I don't think that really portrays what they were working on it for multiple years. Just to be clear, I heard about them bringing back Verdansk years ago, like properly, like working on building out certain things within the game. They worked on it for years. So for the time being, Verdansk is sticking around, and this is just the beginning of the Verdansk 2025 journey. And then we'll see how things go from there. So again, no confirmation or anything on the strategy on the maps moving forward, but we love Verdansk. It was a nostalgic map that we loved, and it's fun to play on. And so we just want to keep investing on it. And so we want to keep investing on it and continue to make a better experience for our players moving forward for at least the time being, which I absolutely adore. My question is, how does that affect us in the future whenever we are expected to get a map like Avalon? You know, we had a Black Ops map set up. The issue is if they're going to keep Verdansk as the whole 2025 through to 2026 map, we may not actually get Avalon because we will maybe not be in the correct Black Ops cycle. Avalon was actually supposed to launch with the Black Ops 6 because Avalon is literally a part of the Black Ops 6 storyline. In fact, if you watch the season 2, I don't know what it's cinematic, the season 2 cinematic, they literally say to a new Avalon. It was supposed to be in the game. Like, I think there were also certain assets that even got put out for marketing that were from Avalon. There were so many different things that were like showing that Avalon was supposed to be the map that we got with Black Ops 6, and it just never happened. So my curiosity is whether or not we're going to get that in the future, or if it's completely scrapped, because making a whole map like that and then using for like zombies sounds like the dumbest I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm going to be 100% with you right there. The next thing is there was a certain part about the casual mode, and I figured answering this question because a lot of people have been asking about it as of late. They said, we knew there was going to be a lot of players, or a lot of new players, or lapsed players. Word of mouth, like, hey, come check out Verdansk. We added this casual mode, which is doing really well for us. We wanted players to come in and re-experience it at their pace, or experience it for the first time in a safe way where they don't feel like they're getting sweated out or outplayed. We were very careful with crafting this experience this season, and the data is showing us that it's been really successful, and we hope to keep that momentum going in the future. So of course, they are hearing the feedback on the fact that sweats are in the mode. They exist within the mode, and they may be causing a bit of a ruckus. So I'm assuming the feedback they're talking about is whether or not they may add a KD cap or this, that, or the other thing to the mode, or a playtime cap or something like that. I doubt that's going to happen. I personally think that it's going to stay the way that it is. They're not really going to change anything. They may make skill-based matchmaking for it a little bit stricter. They may change the way that the bots work in different levels of lobbies, stuff like that. But I seriously doubt they're going to kick certain players out based on whether or not they're good at a game, because the whole point is for everyone to get the opportunity to play more casually than to sweat 24/7. The issue is every time something cool happens, there's always going to be bad actors. There's always going to be TikTok streamers and all these guys that want to look like they're super cool in front of their friends and the 8 viewers that they have hopping in and shooting bots and be like, look, I did a thing. That sucks. It really does. If I hop into casual, I'm playing it more casually. I'm not going to go balls to the wall. I'm not going to try and drop a 20 bomb. I'm not going to try and go crazy. If anything, I've tried to drop in completely solo so that I'm not even having to try and carry my team to a win, because that's what happened the first time I played. So I want to stay away from that. But I'm really, really hoping that they keep it the way that it is and they let it be what it is, because it is good. It is a good thing. And I know a lot of people want their participation trophy. I'm actually talking about the casual players. They want to feel like they can get a win. But the issue is there's 28 real people in your lobby. If you were going to lose, you were going to lose anyway. Like, it's that simple. If a TikTok guy walks into casual mode and he's going demon mode, you're going to lose to him. If a TikTok guy walked into casual and he was playing casually, you're still going to lose to him, bro. Like, it's that simple. At the end of the day, it is what it is. It's one of those things. Bad actors exist. The only problem that I foresee is that with so many bots in the game, there's actually at any given moment, about 3,000 players shadow banned, including, but not limited to, cheaters, which means the people that are shadow banned, they're more likely to get into a match in that mode. So because it only needs to fill 28 players, it's much easier for them to get in and the game to start. So you'll see a lot more cheaters in that mode, probably in the future, when they finally figured out how to truly break through Ricochet, which I'm sure is going to happen. The next thing I have highlighted here is IGN said, I wanted to get some insight into time to kill and how you approached what you wanted to achieve there for Verdansk coming back. It feels shortened for me, but exactly what happened there and why did you make the changes you made? Pete said, comparatively to last year, the Urzikstan year, it is a faster time to kill. It's pretty equivalent. I don't know what the exact numbers are offhand, but the original experience and what we wanted to go back to for now was make it more casual. Friendly, kind of. If I'm not good at hitting shots, I can have an opportunity. I'm not going to get destroyed every gunfight battle. There's a lot more to be excited of, like, oh, I have an opportunity to get a kill. So of course, they are catering to casual players. And I know that some people are upset about that, but at the end of the day, such is life, bro. Like, such is life. That's how I feel about it. Like, if you can't adapt, get off the game, bro. If you are a good player and you're going to sit and whine about every single thing that pops up, what's the point? Like, I just don't get it. If you're good enough to adapt, what's the problem? Right? Like, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Next up, IGN said, my first Verdansk match back. I was in the plane, yada, 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 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. They wanted to know, what's the deal? Are we going to stick with Ninja Turtle stuff or are we going to go more Milsim? Pete responded and said, we talked about everything. We left no stone unturned, really. But we wanted to create the best version of Verdansk possible. And part of that is understanding the reality of where we're at. We're in a Black Ops 6 year, which, like I said, Black Ops 6, it has the most aggressive microtransactions of any company, plain and simple. And it's because they can get away with it, and Activision knows they can get away with it, so they push it more for Treyarch. So at the end of the day, we are still dealing with differences in loadouts and weaponry and even operators. We tried to pay homage and pay off the spirit of that nostalgic experience as best as possible. But our intent was never to facsimile of that old experience. I don't know how to say that word. It was supposed to be the best of Verdansk and Warzone today. Part of that was respecting players' purchases. As a player, I've invested X amount of time, money, whatever it is, and this is who I like to play with. Okay, we could have restricted weapons and operators, but then it creates this big friction moment for players who are like, I just want to play the game. I want to have fun in my mode. I know some players might have more of a stance on it, like I want to be pure milsim, but the spirit was to make it welcoming for all players. Now, I will note, of course, part of that I disagree with. Weapons are weapons. You literally say at any point you can take that away from players. So I'm a firm believer that you can absolutely vault weapons and bring them back later. It makes no sense to me to say something about weapons on that, right? Because people pay for these skins. They will always be able to play with it in Black Ops 6 or in, Modern Warfare, whatever. But you have to be able to change the meta instead of constantly nerfing and buffing and nerfing and buffing. Because what's the point? They're not going to use that weapon anyway if it's nerfed or buffed, right? Like, it does not make sense to me. So they have to be able to vault these weapons and bring them back in later or whatever it may be. I don't see the point in having 160 weapons. That is the craziest I have ever heard in my life. And we have so many guns, so many. It is unnecessary. Chill it out. It's great that we can have all these options, but it's a little much. It is like 300 hours of leveling to get all these guns done. If you are coming back now and you want to try something to get every weapon leveled, I'm not talking about camos in the slightest, just leveled, it is 300 hours if you play at a pro level. I'm not kidding in the slightest. That is what it is. it is an outrageous number. For the casual player, it's 600 hours. Do you know how much that is? 600 divided by 40. That is 15 work weeks. That is a quarter of a year. It would take you 3 months to get that done if you did 40 hours a week at a casual level, bro. That is insane to me. That is a big problem. In my personal opinion, if they're going to keep all the weapons in, every single one of them need to have all the attachments for free within Warzone. It's that simple. It's that simple. If I buy a skin, everything should be a mastercraft, meaning that if I change the attachments, the gun looks the same. I don't want to pay for something and then it looks completely different because I changed something. It should look the same. These should just be weapon skins. There's so many different things like that that I would absolutely change for the sake of monetization for the game and allowing players to keep that stuff. And the fact that they didn't mention in that kind of feels like a slap in the face to the players that have been talking about this for so long. The next thing is that with that, if you actually hop back in, we're going to talk about this real quick. I just want to play the game. I want to have fun. I want to use the weapon and characters that I want. But then it creates a big friction moment. I want it to be pure milsim. Like, people want to be able to use what they want to use, right? But why is it that the enemy player has to see what I'm using? I think that they could add in that little toggle, but I think it's going to affect the way that they monetize. And that's why they haven't done it. So lots of different things said today. I want to be very clear to the creators I mentioned in this video. One, please pay attention to your audience. Please, we as creators have a responsibility to listen to the people that are in our audience. We have a responsibility to these people to keep them in mind. Swagg, I think you did an incredible job doing that. I think you just miscommunicated. It is that simple. I really do. I don't think he really was trying to be super hateful to the people. I think he's actually an incredible dude that really cares about his community. I think he just probably should have communicated properly in that situation. Say it right the first time so you don't have to come back. But if you come back, at least take accountability for your actions instead of blaming it on the people that were upset that you said something. Like, that's goofy. I love you, man, but that one's got me thrown, bro. It really does. And all the other guys that are constantly fussing about, we need to change this, we need to change this, we need to make it to where sweats have the ability to sweat. Sweats have the ability to sweat, bro. Like, they really do. Don't get me wrong. I think that splitting off game modes and treating them differently is fine. I don't see an issue with that. If Raven wants to say, all right, this is the Rebirth team, y'all take care of that. This is the Verdansk team, the big map team, y'all take care of that. I think that'd be much better for the game. I don't think Resurgence is a battle royale. At the end of the day, it's not, because you don't come back to life 47 times in a battle royale. So I think if they treat that more like what it is, they'll have a better thriving audience over there. And I think if they treat Warzone like what it is without having to constantly balance, that'll make it thrive over here. So I think there's a couple of things like that. And I genuinely do. I feel for the Resurgence people that hop in and they want to play it the way that it's meant to be played. And now that they've had that taken away from them, it does really suck. I hear you on that. I think the big thing at the end of the day comes down to, like, where's the player base right now? You know, recognize how your viewers feel. Read your comments, you know, share some of the comments, or even do what I'm doing. Go through the comments in your video and respond to them, bro. Like, respond to other creators in a long form, like in a long format, so that you can get all your thoughts out instead of something short that's gonna misconstrue what you're trying to say. But either way, I appreciate y'all. I'm sorry that you had to listen to my voice like this. It's clearly been a whole thing. One of these days I'm gonna be better, but hopefully it's before I get married. Like, that's where I'm at the end of the month. All right, here we go. Anyway, y'all have an incredible remainder of your day. I'll catch you later. Subscribe if you're new, if you don't hate me already. Bye-bye. Bye.